Yo, what up? Welcome to Warhammer Basics Part 3, Cutting, Scraping, and Assembling. This one's going to be a full-length video, so let's jump right into it. Now that you've spent basically all your life savings on this massive heap of unassembled plastic and mixed cables and general squalor, and you've also got your tools and glue, now you got to assemble your models before you paint them. So I'm going to take you through my process for not only clipping them off the sprue, but also trimming them and scraping the mold lines and assembling them and getting them ready for painting.
Alright, so step one, get your clippers, get your X-Acto knife, get your models, get your instructions. Throw out the instructions, you don't need them. No, I'm just kidding. The instructions are the first thing you need. Find the model that you're going to clip out, memorize all the piece numbers, and go to the sprue. Find out what sprue the pieces are on. Just snap that one off the rest of the sprues. You want that sprue. Throw the other ones back in the pile. You don't need those ones right now. We'll go deal with those ones later. Now, using the flat side of your clipper, start clipping off your pieces one at a time. Make sure you leave just a little bit of extra sprue on the model so you have a little bit of room for air and you don't accidentally clip part of the model off while you're doing it. Some people like to clip it completely flat right off the drop. I don't like doing that because I'm kind of clumsy and I like to just leave myself a little bit of wiggle room. I'm just going to take a second to talk about the general layout of the Games Workshop instructions. They're basically all color coded, so see how I'm building the Liberator Prime with the shield here? So I'm just going to grab the blue part that goes with that. That's E6 and E7 because I want the shield. I'll clip those ones off. We'll have all those parts clipped out and then we'll move on to cutting off the little sprue nub things. Alright, now we're going to bust up the X-Acto knife, and these things are razor sharp, so in general you should never cut towards yourself. But if you are going to, just for better leverage, always support the piece that you're cutting with your thumb and then use your fingers to apply gentle pressure to the knife blade. This takes a little bit of practice, so I would say if you're just starting out, always cut away from yourself. And remember to always shave down stubborn bits of plastic because that will reduce the amount that you have to cut off in one shot and make it less likely that you're going to basically lose control and absolutely slice yourself up. I've learned the hard way. I've totally diced myself to ribbons. You probably will too at some point, but you will get practice after a while and you'll cut yourself less the better you get at it. So that's all I'll say on that. Just be careful when you're starting out and keep a box of Band-Aids nearby. Moving on real quick, we're going to go to shaving down mold lines. So mold lines are just the joint where the two halves of the mold meet and then they separate them and it leaves a fine little plastic line on the model. It took me quite a while to focus in on this with the camera and you can still barely see it in the footage I took. So you'll see it better up close with your own models, but there'll just be a very fine line. So all you want to do with this is just take the X-Acto knife and start shaving it down gently. Don't take too much plastic off. Try and keep the angle like you would like a razor or something like that, you know, when you're shaving. It's better to do a lot of passes, only shaving off a little bit of plastic at a time. And remember, where there's mold lines on one side, there will always be mold lines on the other, so shave down as many as you can. If you're just starting out, you don't even actually need to take all the mold lines off, but I find it just looks nicer and cleaner when you've removed every mold line off a model. So that's just a personal preference for me. When I first started out ages ago, nobody ever told me that I had to take the mold lines off, so a lot of my early models just have all the mold lines on. And you know what? You don't even notice when you plan. So it is what it is, right? One final note too is if a mold line is really fine, you can just use the tip of the blade and that'll shave it down nice and smooth. But if you got like a stubborn part, like on this little sword scabbard here, you may want to use the base of the X-Acto blade to shave it down because that'll give you a lot more strength and a lot more leverage and that'll take more plastic off. But you just got to be careful you don't scrape too much off or accidentally dig into the model when you're using that because it doesn't take much to actually start knocking big chunks of your models off. Alright, we're getting into the final step here, which is gluing and assembling the model. For this, you're going to need your Tamiya Extra Thin Cement. This is a plastic glue, so how it works is basically it melts down the plastic that it touches and then fuses it together. So you want to be pretty careful not to get any of this stuff on any of the exposed detail surfaces of the model. Try and keep it on the joints and the pegs and stuff like that, and the holes where the models are actually going to join together. These are push fit models. The instructions will show you the specific order that they need to be assembled in, so just follow that exactly. I like to get a good amount of glue in the peg and the hole slot thingy, and then use sort of a thin coating around the edges just to seal up all the joints. You can use less, you can use more. As long as it's not squeezing out and running all over the model, that's the main thing you want to watch for, because then you'll start melting down exterior surfaces of the model and it'll start to look pretty messy pretty quick. If you do have a bit of overrun and it gets onto like some chainmail or a face or something, it's really important not to disturb it. Don't touch it, don't try and wipe it off. Just let it dry and then see what the situation's like once it dries. Because this extra thin stuff evaporates off real quick, so it may And I say a big may not destroy too much detail if it runs over and then dries without being disturbed. Alright, last thing I'm going to talk about in this video is sub-assembly. Sometimes you don't want to fully assemble a model right away, and you want to leave it partially disassembled to make painting easier if some parts are hard to get to with a paintbrush, stuff like that. I find generally with push fit, it's almost never worth the effort. But that being said, I will sub-assemble this one just slightly. I leave the shields off because painting the backs of shields can be a headache, and a shield's pretty easy to glue on after the fact. That being said, you may want to start sub-assembling eventually, but if you're just starting out, it's probably not worth it. Some people have these horrendous setups with like 40 corks with wires sticking out of them and glue and stuff like that. It just looks like a pain in the ass. Even to this day, I still don't really sub-assemble models very much. Like the odd piece here and there I leave off. And it all really just comes down to personal preference. Anyways, there's our fully assembled Liberator Prime. He is looking thick, he is looking solid, he is looking tight. He is ready for the next steps, which are priming and painting. All of which will be coming up later on in the series. Anyways, if you made it this far, I hope you enjoyed, and don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button if you want to see more content like this in the future. You can check me out on Instagram and TikTok if you want to see my finished painted projects, and also I stream live on TikTok Monday to Friday at around 7 p.m. Pacific time. Come and chat with me there, and yeah, if you have any questions, you can come ask me. Anyways, I'm out. Later.